And Amy, so here in Illinois, if we could localize the midterms a bit, we have this rather unique double whammy. You've got President Trump, who's unpopular in Chicago Metro. You've got Bruce Rauner, who's even more unpopular in Chicago Metro. And as much talk as there was about Dems regaining control of the House running through California, it may very well end up running or not running through Illinois, because you have two suburban congressmen, Peter Roskam and Randy Hultgren, that recent polling I've seen, are in a dead heat with well-financed opposition. And then also downstate, which actually the benefit there is that Trump at least is popular in southern Illinois. Mike Bost also in a real dogfight for his congressional seat. Are we on the cusp of Illinois going the way of California in terms of the elimination of the Republican Party in November? For more on this topic, we're pleased to be joined by Peter Roskam, who is one of those congressmen I just mentioned, representative from Illinois 6 in the west and northwest suburbs. Peter, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Dan and Amy, good to be with you this morning.
So how's it going out there, and how do you explain the unpopularity of Trump and Rauner, two guys who really couldn't be more different personality-wise and policy-wise, but don't seem to be connecting with suburban voters here?
I think what you do as a candidate is you connect with the suburban voters, and you remind them that they're electing you to a co-equal branch of government, that is, to the United States House of Representatives, and the responsibility is to reflect that congressional district to that institution. And you also remind them that you're running against a guy that wants to raise nearly every tax conceivable. My opponent has said first thing he's going to do is repeal the tax cuts bill. Then he's said he's in favor of increasing the gas tax. He wants to increase the Social Security tax. He is with Mike Madigan against the property tax freeze. He is with J.B. Pritzker on the progressive income tax. So campaigns are choices, particularly about the future. And the 6th congressional district is interested in tax relief, not taking on a big tax burden and being complicit with Madigan and being complicit with Pelosi and her whole agenda.
I note over the weekend that DNC Chairman Tom Perez was in Atlanta, Georgia, apologizing to black voters in lieu of, straight out transparent pandering, not just for their continued support, but also the necessary turnout. They don't just need 95% of the black vote to make their coalition work. They need a robust turnout in the black community. Localizing that, where is the effort, or is there an effort, do you think, to mobilize disaffected Republicans, conservatives in particular in Illinois, to turn out as well? Because it doesn't seem to me that candidates like you or Hultgren or others are going to be able to win enough Democrats to make your numbers work. You got to have your base turn out.
Yeah, no question. I mean, you got to have your base turn out. You've got to be talking to people who describe themselves as independents. And I guess the big question that they've got to ask and answer is, what's their capacity for more tax paying? Because the Democrats have been unable to really muster any sort of vision for the future that doesn't involve massive tax hikes. And on a federal level, for the 6th district, if every rate goes up, which is what my opponent is proposing, that means the doubling of the child tax credit goes away. That means that there's an increase in the alternative minimum tax that hits 30,000 people in our district. And we've got an economy that is growing and robust, lowest unemployment rate in 18 years, manufacturing confidence at a 20-year high. And we can either embrace and pursue the economics of that, or to give up would be to say, okay, Mike Madigan, Nancy Pelosi, you run the traps, you run the show. The 6th congressional district basically becomes an ATM machine for the state and the country.
Now, recently, you and your opponent have been trading barbs over election security funding and Russian interference. Where do you stand on this Russian investigation?
120 days ago, the House and the Senate and the President signed into law spending $380 million that goes out to the states. It's interesting. My opponent dragged Senator Durbin into a press conference late last week, criticizing me for voting against a procedural vote in the House. And Senator Durbin voted the exact same way as I did 60 days before. So this is just, I think my opponent's got to get serious, basically, about running for Congress. These are serious times as it relates to Russia. Russia is a malevolent nation that clearly interfered in the 2016 campaign. I met with President Trump, encouraged him, and said, look, what I said was, you've got to think about the symbol of the language that you're using. And I gave him the story of Natan Sharansky, the Jewish refusenik during the Soviet times, who was incredibly heartened when he was in the Gulag and he heard about President Reagan's evil empire speech. And that's the type of language we need to hear from the American president right now.
What about in terms of policy action from this president as it pertains to Russia on the heels this weekend of the announcement that $200 million more of military aid is being sent to Ukraine?
So I chair the House Democracy Partnership, which is a group that works closely with the Ukrainian Rada, their parliament. And for years they have been coming saying, we need lethal aid. And the irony is, it's this administration that's giving them that lethal aid. The Obama administration wasn't doing any of that. Remember, I mean, there's a lot of focus right now on Trump's handling of Russia. But remember, it was Barack Obama who openly mocked Mitt Romney in the 2012 campaign when Romney accurately predicted and said that our biggest security threat was from Russia. And Obama mocked him and said, hey, Mitt, the 1980s called and they want their foreign policy back.
Right.
Or during the hot mic when Obama said to Medvedev, I'll have more flexibility after the election. What kind of weakness and foolishness did that communicate to the Russians? And now this administration is giving the Ukrainians lethal aid, which is the right thing to do.
Staying in the international arena, this was sort of subordinated to all of the Trump-Putin-Russia business last week, but the move by the administration to try and open direct talks with the Taliban and figure an exit strategy for the 15,000 or so U.S. troops still in that country. This against the backdrop over the weekend of the vice president in exile returning to Kabul amid bombings and dozens of murders. Where are you with respect to essentially an extraction plan from Afghanistan?
Well, I think there's been three major foreign policy things that have been in play. One is Iran, one is the move into Jerusalem, and the other is Russia. Those are the three major things. And in two of those, I think the public discussion of them, Iran, Jerusalem, have been good from the administration's point of view. I don't think the public discussion with the Russians has been good. So what we got to do is make sure that as it relates to this Taliban discussion, there's a clear plan going in, clearly articulated goals, that the administration is not manipulated, because I do think Putin took advantage of the president in Helsinki and got a veneer of legitimacy that he doesn't deserve. And I think that it would be wise to articulate what it is that we're exactly hoping to accomplish through direct talks with the Taliban.
Are you going to be having any, back to the challenge that faces you and how you have to fight for every vote and make sure people get out and vote, especially registered Republicans? Are you going to be having any debates with your opponent?
Yeah, we've got one coming up this Thursday. It is going to be broadcast on Fox 32. And look, I'm glad my first opponent was Tammy Duckworth back in 2006. She was a phenomenon as a candidate, a national figure, highly sympathetic based on her background. It was a tough year for my party. George W. Bush was not popular. The war in Iraq was not popular, and we came out on top in that election.
All right. He is Peter Roskam, congressman for the 6th Congressional District in the Western and Northwestern Burbs, and he is in a real fight this year for his reelection against Sean Casten. So look forward to that debate this week. Peter Roskam, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.